Bury the Archduke with an empire's lamentation. Let us bury the Archduke to the noise of the mourning of a mighty nation, mourning when their leaders fall. Warriors carry the warrior's pall, and sorrow darkens hamlet and hall. The assassin's work was done. The mortal remains of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand were returning home for burial. A world on holiday took only passing note of another Habsburg tragedy. In that brilliant summer of 1914, it was, for most men, only passing notice. An Englishman living in Capri glanced casually at an Italian newspaper.
There in the stop press news was a telegram that the Archduke Franz Ferdinand had been shot as he visited a town called Sarajevo, of which neither of us had ever heard. After lunch, we consulted the Times Atlas and found that Sarajevo was the capital of Bosnia, which seemed almost equally remote and insignificant.
A few days later, the same man, traveling through Paris back to England, bought a French paper at the Gare du Nord.
There was an article in it headed Sarajevo, and for a moment, so faint had been the original impression, I wondered where I had seen that name before.
Sarajevo, Sunday. After the crime, reprisals. Violent anti-Serb demonstrations have taken place. More than 200 Serb houses have been sacked and their occupants maltreated. Martial law has been proclaimed.
Even in the countries most affected, Austria-Hungary and neighboring Serbia, it would require a little time to understand what Sarajevo might come to mean. In Austria, as the Archduke's body was brought back to Vienna, opinion against Serbia steadily hardened. The German ambassador reported to the Kaiser.
Count Berchtold, the Austro-Hungarian foreign minister, told me today that everything pointed to the fact that the threads of the conspiracy to which the Archduke fell a sacrifice ran together at Belgrade. I frequently hear expressed in Vienna, even among serious people, the wish that at last a final and fundamental reckoning should be had with the Serbs.
The Kaiser noted in the margin of his copy of the report, "Now or never." 4 days later, July the 6th, he sent a message to the Austrian Emperor.
The Emperor Franz Joseph may rest assured that His Majesty will faithfully stand by Austria-Hungary, as is required by the obligations of his alliance and of his ancient friendship.
And with that, on that same day, the Kaiser set off in the imperial yacht for a summer cruise in Scandinavian waters. This was the holiday season everywhere, and the sea was calling. Emperors and princes, soldiers and statesmen, rich men and poor men, it was holiday time for all. But while they relaxed with summer pastimes, the logic of power was moving towards terrible conclusions. The German ambassador was conveying to Berlin a message from the Austrian emperor and his foreign minister.
Count Berchtold requested me to express to His Majesty their most sincere gratitude for the position which he has assumed, so clearly in accord with the compact of alliance and the dictates of friendship.
The compact of alliance and the dictates of friendship. These were the fatal words, these were the concepts which would bring Europe's long holiday of peace to a sudden end. Under the innocent laughter, beneath the internal tensions, behind the diplomatic courtesies, a network of compacts and alliances linked the powers together in misfortune. In the center of it all was the triple alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. By a secret treaty in 1879, Austria and Germany had been allied against Russia. Impressed by Germany's growing strength and overcoming her distrust of Austria, Italy joined the compact in 1882. So the center of Europe, with two young nations and one ambitious old one, became a fortress, waiting for the day to make a sortie. The implications did not go unnoticed on either side of the fortress. The Russian Empire was more than a power. It was the focus of an idea. Slovaks and Slovenes under Austrian rule, Czechs and Serbs, all looked towards Russia as the protector of Slavs everywhere. And Russia, conscious of the menace of the Central Powers, had found an ally. In 1891, the apparently impossible happened. The Imperial Russian government, the very symbol of tyranny, signed an agreement with the Third Republic of France. So the Triple Alliance was now faced with a dual alliance, and the dual alliance was linked to the Balkans, an unsettled area which could at any moment burst into flame. None of these arrangements brought security. On the contrary, tension and anxiety grew. Both groups looked for new friends, the Central Powers towards Turkey and her empire stretching down to the Persian Gulf. France, building her own empire, looked uneasily across the Channel at the heart of an empire in being. Slowly and unwillingly, British policy bowed to the pressure of events. As the Imperial German Navy, based on its North Sea harbors, grew year by year, Britain's sense of safety diminished. Lord Haldane, an admirer of much in Germany, summed the feeling up.
We who live on islands and are dependent for our food and our raw materials on our being able to protect their transport could not permit that protection to be threatened by the creation of naval forces intended to make it precarious.
Colonial disputes with France became unimportant. The Entente Cordiale was forged. In 1906, military discussions began between the two countries. These completed a process described by Winston Churchill, all that subterranean, subconscious movement whereby the vast antagonisms of the Great War were slowly, remorselessly, inexorably assembled. Behind the summer pleasure, as an American writer says, the nations of Europe were like a file of marching prisoners chained together by their ankles, prisoners of national pride and shackled together by treaty obligations. Britain's entente with France was followed by an understanding with France's ally, Russia. And on July the 20th, 1914, the French president, Monsieur Poincaré, arrived on a state visit to Russia, designed to strengthen that alliance. The particular purpose of this visit was to emphasize the military ties between Russia and France, which were quite precise. In 1912, the Russian General Staff had agreed that the Russians would march on the 15th day of mobilization. That was merely their advance guard, precursor of the millions who might follow, the Russian steamroller. 36 divisions of cavalry, 114 divisions of infantry, over 2.5 million men, with limitless reserves behind them. If they could be armed, if they could be equipped, if they could even be mobilized.